I sent $6,000 for my parents' anniversary gala. Full catering, champagne wall, string quartet. 4 days later, I got a group text. We're only inviting immediate family. I wasn't on the final list. I didn't reply. I just reversed the champagne delivery, canceled the quartet, and flagged the event account. On the morning of, my sister texted, "Why is nothing arriving?" My dad called 19 times. When I finally answered, I said, "I was the one who brought up the idea of the gala in the first place. It was about 3 months ago, over dinner at my parents' house. Just me, them, and my sister, Flora. They were talking about maybe doing something small for their 30th wedding anniversary, and I said, why not do something bigger, a proper celebration? They'd been together 3 decades after all. Milestone stuff. I meant it as a gift. I said I'd cover the costs. They lit up. Both of them. Flora smiled too, but not the same way. Her smile is always a little different when I'm the one doing something generous. Growing up, it was always her who got the applause. I was the one who should try harder. Flora got straight B's. It was called balanced. I got an A- and got asked what happened to the A. Still, I went ahead and started planning. I hired a catering company that does upscale events. Custom tasting menus, imported champagne wall, full staff. I booked a string quartet because I remembered Mom once said she regretted not having live music at her wedding. I even paid extra for heaters in case it got cold that night. Total cost, a little over $6,000. I paid in full. No installments. Just wired it all out like it was nothing. 4 days before the party, I got a text. It was a group text from my mom. The same one she uses for family holiday planning and birthday reminders. It read, "Hey everyone. We decided to keep the anniversary dinner intimate. Immediate family only. Thanks for understanding." I stared at it for a solid minute. Immediate family. There were only 5 people originally invited. My parents, me, Flora, her boyfriend Dylan, and my aunt and uncle. That's it. So when she said immediate family only, it didn't make sense unless I wasn't considered immediate anymore. Then Flora replied with a heart emoji. Dylan replied, "Perfect." I didn't respond. I didn't ask who made that decision, or why I was being cut out. I didn't ask who the hell they thought was paying for their intimate event. I already knew. It wasn't a coincidence. Flora didn't want me there, and they went along with it. Again. They didn't just disinvite me. They excluded me like I was never part of the plan. I reversed the champagne delivery that night, canceled the string quartet the next morning, called the caterers and flagged the account for a fraudulent booking. I didn't even need to lie. I told them the event was canceled without my knowledge. They were surprisingly cooperative. Refund in progress. On the morning of the event, I woke up to 8 missed calls. My sister's text came in at 9:17 a.m. "Why is nothing arriving?" Then the flood started. My dad called 19 times before noon. On the last one, I finally picked up. He didn't even ask if I was okay. He didn't ask why I hadn't shown up or if something had happened. He just said, "Where the hell is everything we agreed on?" I told him the truth. I said, I figured I wasn't invited. There was silence on the line for a second too long. Then I added, "But don't worry. I made sure I wasn't paying for it either." I hung up. That was the beginning. But it wasn't the end. Because what none of them knew, not Flora, not my dad, and definitely not my mom, was that I'd been holding on to a secret for 3 years. A big one. Something I saw one night when I dropped by, unannounced, long before the gala was ever an idea. I saw my mother through the back kitchen window kissing our neighbor. Not a friendly kiss. Not a goodbye, thanks for the garden hose kiss. I never told anyone. She begged me not to. Told me it was a mistake. A one-time thing. Promised it meant nothing. She said telling my dad would destroy the family. But the thing is, I don't think there's a family left to destroy. The party still happened. Sort of. Flora scrambled to find replacements last minute, and from what I heard through my cousin Nate, it ended up being a mess. They served grocery store sushi, and someone brought a Bluetooth speaker for the music. The champagne wall turned into a plastic cooler with canned cocktails. The string quartet was gone, replaced by a Spotify playlist someone forgot to put on shuffle. My parents told everyone there had been a vendor mishap. That's the word they used. Mishap, like it was some fluke of fate. They didn't mention me. They didn't say I had planned the whole thing, or paid for it, or that they'd removed me from the guest list like I was some ex-boyfriend no one talks about anymore. And I let it go at first. But then they started talking. I got wind of it the next day when my friend David, who also happens to work with Flora, texted me. Dude, your family's throwing you under the bus. Your sister just told everyone you bailed on them and ruined the party on purpose. I wasn't surprised. I was furious, but not surprised. It was the same pattern. It always had been. Flora messes up. They blame me. I speak up. They say I'm dramatic. She forgets my birthday. They tell me to stop making a scene. I don't show up to an event I was uninvited from. Suddenly, I'm a selfish saboteur. What pissed me off most was how fast they turned. I had just dropped $6,000 on them without hesitation. They didn't even ask for proof before believing her version. That told me everything I needed to know. That night, I started thinking about what I'd seen 3 years ago. The night I stopped by to drop off some files my mom left at my place. She wasn't expecting me. Her car was in the driveway. The kitchen light was on. I figured I'd walk around the side gate and leave the folder on the patio table. And there she was, pressed up against the neighbor. Our neighbor. The one who coached Flora's high school debate team. Married. Kids. His hand was on her hip, and her lips were on his neck. She saw me. We locked eyes. I didn't say anything, just turned and walked back to my car. An hour later, she called crying, said it meant nothing, that she'd had too much wine, that it wouldn't happen again. She asked me not to tell Dad, said he'd leave her, said it would ruin everything. So, I buried it. For 3 years, I buried it. But now they were lying about me, smearing me to anyone who'd listen, pretending I was the villain for pulling out of a party I wasn't welcome at. That tipped the scale. I waited 3 days, let the dust settle. Then I made a decision. If they wanted to make me the bad guy, fine. I played the role, but I was going to write the ending. So I showed up, not to their house, to the one place they couldn't ignore me. Church. The same church where they'd announced their anniversary plans in front of half the congregation. The same place they'd been parading their marriage like it was some holy thing that stood the test of time. The Sunday after the party, I walked in late, right before announcements. People whispered. My dad smiled when he saw me, probably thinking I was there to apologize. I walked straight to the front, right as the pastor started talking about long-lasting love and loyalty. And I said it loud enough for the pews to go silent. She cheated on him with the neighbor. That's all I said. And then I walked out. I didn't stick around to see the aftermath. Didn't need to. 10 minutes after I walked out, my phone lit up like it had caught fire. Missed calls from Dad. Texts from Flora, mostly in all caps. And a string of messages from numbers I didn't even recognize. Church people, probably. I turned my phone off for the rest of the day. By the time I turned it back on that night, Flora had left a voicemail calling me sick and manipulative. She said Mom hadn't slept, that Dad wouldn't even look at her, that I'd humiliated them both and ruined everything. I didn't respond. But I was curious, so I texted my cousin Nate. He told me what went down after I left. At first, everyone just sat there frozen. The pastor didn't even try to move things along. My dad didn't speak. My mom stood up and walked out. No tears. No denial. Just silence. Dad followed her, but not immediately. According to Nate, when he did leave, he didn't follow her to the car. He walked the opposite way around the building alone. That was Sunday. On Tuesday, Dad called. I ignored the first 3 calls, then answered the 4th. His voice sounded small. He asked if it was true. What I saw. I said yes. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then he said, "You should have told me sooner." I didn't argue. I could have said I tried, that I didn't want to destroy everything, that I thought I was doing the right thing. But none of that mattered now, he said. I think I already knew. Apparently, he'd suspected for years, but never had proof. Thought maybe he was being paranoid, that he'd imagined the distance. But now, it all made sense. The weird excuses, the late nights, the overly defensive arguments when he'd asked harmless questions. He thanked me. I wasn't expecting that. Not after everything. Not after being treated like a backup plan for most of my life. He told me he was leaving. Said he'd already packed a bag and was staying at a hotel near the office. Asked if I'd meet him for dinner later in the week. Just the two of us. I agreed. The next day, I got an email from my mom. Subject line: "You've gone too far." No greeting. No punctuation. Just a wall of text about how I'd betrayed her. How I'd sided with destruction. How I'd cost her everything she built. She said I would regret it. She said if I thought I'd see a penny of their estate, I was delusional. I read it twice, then deleted it. Didn't reply. At dinner that Friday, my dad looked different. Not happy. Not exactly free, but clearer. Like someone who had been underwater too long and finally surfaced. He apologized. He said he wished he'd done more for me growing up. That he let too much slide when it came to Flora and Mom. That he let me become the fixer because no one else stepped up. Then he asked if I'd be willing to stay involved to help him transition through whatever came next. Lawyers. Paperwork. The house. I told him yes, and for the first time, it didn't feel like I was being used. It felt like maybe, just maybe, I was finally being seen. Dad and I fell into a strange rhythm after the fallout. Weekly meetups. Quiet dinners. Working through the divorce checklist like it was just another to-do list. He stayed in a furnished rental near the river. Nothing fancy. Minimal furniture. He said he liked the silence. It was the first time in years he could hear himself think. Meanwhile, Mom vanished from my life. No calls, no texts, not even a forwarded legal notice. Everything came through the lawyers. I figured she was too busy spinning the story to her liking. Nate told me she'd been calling it a smear campaign and blaming the ungrateful son who's always wanted attention. I didn't bother correcting her. She'd made her choices. Then the letter arrived. No return address. Just my name in shaky, uneven handwriting. I almost tossed it, thinking it was junk or some leftover sympathy note. I opened it out of habit. It wasn't from her. It was from him. Mr. Palmer, the neighbor, the one I saw that night, through the kitchen window, pressed against my mother like a man who didn't fear being caught. The letter was short, just a single page. He said he knew I saw them, that he'd always wondered what I'd do with it, that he regretted how it happened. But the heart isn't loyal to logic. His words. Then came the last part. One sentence that didn't belong. I only wish you had seen the second time. That would have told you everything. I read it 3 times. There had been another time. My stomach twisted. I couldn't tell if he was warning me, blaming me, or just trying to shift the guilt. I didn't know what he meant by everything, but I knew I wouldn't be sleeping that night. The next morning, I drove to the old house. I hadn't seen her since the day of the church fallout. The house looked the same from the outside. The flower beds were dead. No decorations on the porch. Just stillness. She answered after 2 knocks. Didn't look surprised. I didn't say anything. Just handed her the letter. She read it right there in the doorway. No reaction. Then she looked me straight in the eye and said something I wasn't ready for. It wasn't him. I asked what she meant. She didn't blink, didn't fumble, just said it flat. There were others, but he wasn't the one I loved. I felt something slide sideways in my chest. It wasn't just one affair. It wasn't even just cheating. It was worse. It was deliberate, cold, and I realized in that moment she wasn't ashamed. She didn't even deny it. She wanted me to know. You think truth fixes things? She said. It doesn't. Sometimes it just burns down whatever's left. I left without another word. I didn't tell Dad about the letter, or what she said. What was the point? The truth had already done enough. He was rebuilding, however slowly, and he deserved that peace. But the past wasn't done bleeding into the present. 2 weeks later, Flora showed up. I was eating dinner alone when I heard the knock. I opened the door, and there she was, makeup smudged, holding a duffel bag, Dylan's car, idling behind her. She didn't even ask to come in. She just stood there and said, "She kicked us out." Apparently, Mom had turned on her too. Told them they were part of the betrayal, that they'd let her get ambushed, that they were weak and disloyal and no longer welcome in her house. "I let Flora in." She sat on my couch for a long time before saying it. I knew about the first affair, not the others. She admitted she helped cover it up. Back then, when I saw them, Mom told her I'd probably stay quiet, but just in case, Flora had to be the buffer. Keep me from talking. Keep me close. That's why she didn't want me at the gala. Not because she hated me. Because she was terrified I'd finally say something. Now, everything had collapsed. Dylan was threatening to move back in with his parents. Mom had shut off Flora's credit card and told her to find her own way. And the only person left with a roof and a clean conscience was me. She looked at me with her streaked eyes and asked quietly, "Can I stay the night?" I stared at her for a moment. Then I said something I hadn't said to her in years. "I don't know yet." Flora stayed that night. She didn't talk much, just went straight to the guest room, closed the door, and locked it. I heard her crying once around midnight through the thin wall, but I didn't go to her. I didn't know what to say. She had known. She had chosen sides. Maybe she regretted it now, but the damage was already done. The next morning, she was in the kitchen, making coffee like we were kids again. She tried to talk. Said she wanted to explain more about what Mom told her, about how she thought she was doing the right thing. I just said, "You picked her." Every time. She didn't argue. That week, Mom's silence became strategy. She filed first. The lawyers sent over papers that made it clear she was going after everything. The house, the retirement accounts, the lake property my grandparents left Dad. She even tried to claim ownership of some of the money I had transferred for the anniversary. Claimed it was a gift to the family estate. Dad didn't blink. He called a new lawyer. A better one. Someone who didn't flinch at aggressive tactics. And then things escalated. Mom started bad-mouthing him in church. Then, in their old social circles, she called it a betrayal disguised as justice. She told people Dad was manipulated by his jealous son, that he was turning his back on the family over ancient resentment. Flora came home crying. 2 days later, someone at her gym asked if it was true that I blackmailed my own mother. That's when Dad made his move. He filed a formal request for full ownership of the lake property. Said it was outside the marriage's financial timeline. Said he planned to leave it to me. Mom's response came fast. She sent me a letter this time. Not handwritten. Typed. Formal. Cold. It said in part, "Given your actions, you are not entitled to any portion of the estate, either now or in the future. Consider this your official notice." She had disowned me. No drama. No emotion. Just a statement of fact. When I showed it to Dad, he stared at it for a long time. Then he tore it in half. He didn't say anything. But the next morning, I got a call from his lawyer. Dad had added me as the sole beneficiary of the lake house and his personal savings account. No condition. No catches. Flora wasn't on the paperwork. I didn't know what to feel. For so long, it was about survival, trying to just keep some dignity in a family that never made room for mine. And now, suddenly, I was being seen, chosen. It was bittersweet, because I knew what was coming. A few weeks later, the divorce was finalized. They didn't even show up in the same courtroom. And just like that, 30 years unraveled in a matter of minutes. Mom moved out of the house. Word got around. She was staying with an old friend in another city. Flora went with Dylan, who still hadn't found a steady job and mostly played video games in other people's living rooms. Dad kept the house, the quiet, the space. Me. I kept my distance until one day Dad called and said, "Come by the lake this weekend. I want to show you something." I drove up Saturday morning. The lake house was the same as I remembered it from childhood. Low ceilings, old wooden floors that creaked at night. The dock Dad built himself the summer I turned 12. We hadn't been back together in years. Not since before everything started cracking beneath the surface. When I pulled in, he was already out on the dock sitting with 2 mugs of coffee. I joined him. For a while, we didn't say anything. The water was calm. The trees were starting to turn. Then he said, "I'm staying here full time." I looked at him. He nodded. "Sold the house last week. Put in my notice at work. I'm done." I didn't know what to say. I hadn't realized how far he was going, how final this all was. He handed me one of the mugs. It was chipped, old, familiar. "I spent 3 decades building something I thought was real," he said. "But it was built around a person who never really saw me. Not the way you did." I didn't answer. I just listened. He said he wanted to leave something clean behind. Not just money. Not just property. A clean line. Something that didn't have rot in the foundation. So he was changing his will. I tried to object. I told him I didn't need anything, but he shook his head. "This isn't about need. It's about what's right. About giving something to someone who finally told the truth when no one else would." We sat on the dock for a long time after that. Not as father and son. Not quite. More like 2 men who had finally stopped pretending. That night, I drove back to the city. Flora texted once. Just 1 sentence. "I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. Mom never contacted me again. She moved to another state, from what I heard. Took a job as a coordinator for some event company. Still throwing parties, I guess. People like her always land on their feet. But their circles get smaller. A few months later, the family was officially fractured. No more group holidays. No more shared calendars. Everyone was living separate lives. Dad and I still talk. Sometimes we meet at the lake. Sometimes we just call. Flora and I haven't spoken since she left my apartment. I don't know what she tells herself to sleep at night, but I've made peace with the silence. I stopped looking for fairness in people who never gave it. Stopped trying to earn something they never planned to share. And for the first time in my life, the quiet feels like a choice, not a punishment. Let them throw their parties. I've got something better now. Truth and peace. 2 months passed. The weather cooled. Things settled. There were no more calls from lawyers. No more whispers from family friends. No more unexpected letters. It was over in every way that mattered. Dad fully moved into the lake house. He sold the old place faster than I thought he would. A young couple bought it. Said they were going to renovate the kitchen and raise a family there. He told me it felt strange handing over the keys, but not painful, just finished. He spends most mornings fishing. Reads more now. He started talking to a woman from town, someone he met at the market. Nothing serious, just company. I'm glad for that. He needs someone who doesn't come with history. As for me, things have been quiet. My apartment's the same, though it feels bigger now. I go to work. Meet friends for dinner. Sleep without checking my phone at 2 a.m. to see if someone needs something. That's probably the biggest change. Not being needed all the time. Or used. Flora moved out of Dylan's place. Apparently, they broke up. She's back in the city. Staying with a friend. They haven't spoken. There's nothing to say. I don't hate her. I just don't want to start over from zero again. I haven't heard from Mom. Not even through Nate. It's like she vanished completely. No threats. No updates. Nothing. I thought there'd be a final confrontation, or some emotional apology. But no. Just silence. One small surprise did happen, though. About 3 weeks ago, I got an email from the caterer I originally hired for the anniversary gala. The woman who ran the business wrote to thank me. Apparently, canceling early helped them avoid a serious scheduling problem that weekend. She offered me a free event credit. Said she'd remembered how polite I was. I told her thanks, but I didn't have anything to celebrate. She replied, maybe not yet, but people like you, the ones who pull away from storms instead of chasing them, they usually find something worth celebrating soon enough. It stuck with me, and that's where things are now. No more drama. No more fallout. Just life. Finally, mine. Some weekends, I drive up to the lake just to sit on the dock with Dad. We don't always talk. Sometimes we just listen to the water and let the stillness do the work. He keeps a second mug ready for me, chipped, just like the old one. And every time I see it, I think about how far we've come, not just from the chaos, but from who we were in it. I started journaling again. Nothing profound, just small notes about my days. What I cooked, what I saw on a walk, who I bumped into. It helps. It reminds me that not all stories have to end in fire to mean something. Some just fade out and leave space for something else to begin. I'm not chasing closure anymore. I'm just living. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough.